Natasha Monroe stood in her penthouse studio, surrounded by flowing fabrics and half-finished sketches. Afternoon sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting golden patterns across her workspace. Outside, the Pacific stretched endlessly, waves crashing against rocky shores below. Her fashion label had just been featured in Vogue for the third time this year. Models worldwide begged to wear her designs. Yet as she looked at her reflection in the studio mirror, she saw a woman who had forgotten how to feel. 32 years old, and she had already buried her heart 3 times. First was Derek, her college sweetheart, who chose his career over their future. Then came Michael, the charming businessman who turned out to be married. Finally, Thomas, the man she almost married, who left her 2 weeks before their wedding for her former best friend. Each betrayal had added another brick to the wall around her heart. Now that wall felt impenetrable. Her assistant, Jenny, peeked through the doorway with cautious excitement. "Natasha, there's an art exhibition tonight at the Coastal Gallery. Several photographers are showcasing ocean conservation work. I thought you might want to go for inspiration for the new summer collection." Natasha barely looked up from her sketch pad. "I don't have time for galleries, Jenny. Send them a donation and my regards. But one of the photographers specifically requested your presence. He said your use of ocean blues in last season's collection moved him deeply." Jenny handed her an elegant cream-colored invitation with embossed lettering. Something about the sincerity in those words made Natasha pause. She wasn't used to being approached for her art rather than her status. "Fine," she said, surprising herself. "I'll make an appearance." That evening, the Coastal Gallery hummed with quiet sophistication. Unlike the loud champagne-soaked events Natasha usually attended, this space felt contemplative. The walls displayed breathtaking photographs of marine life, each image telling a story of beauty and fragility. Natasha moved through the exhibition with practiced grace, her navy silk dress flowing with each step. Then she stopped before a photograph that stole her breath. A humpback whale breached from dark waters, frozen mid-leap against a stormy sky. But it wasn't just the technical excellence that captivated her. The image somehow captured loneliness and freedom in the same frame. It felt like looking into a mirror. She was swimming alone, a voice said beside her, warm and unhurried. Separated from her pod during a storm. I followed her for 3 days, watching her search. Natasha turned to find a man in his mid-30s wearing a simple gray sweater and jeans that contrasted sharply with the formal attire of other guests. His sun-weathered face and gentle brown eyes suggested someone who spent more time with nature than people. There was an easiness about him that immediately made her defensive. "Did she find them?" Natasha asked, keeping her tone neutral. "Eventually, yes. On the 4th morning, I heard her song change. It became hopeful. 2 hours later, her family answered." He extended his hand. "I'm Julian Hayes. Thank you for coming tonight." His handshake was warm and genuine, nothing like the calculated grips of the businessmen she usually met. "Natasha Monroe. Your work is remarkable." "So is yours," Julian replied. "I've admired how you translate ocean movements into fabric designs. The way your dresses flow, it's like watching water take human form." Natasha felt something unfamiliar flutter in her chest. Most men complimented her beauty or success, but rarely her actual artistry. She quickly suppressed the feeling. "That's very observant of you." They walked through the gallery together, Julian explaining the story behind each photograph with genuine passion. He spoke about months spent on boats, sleeping under stars, waiting for the perfect moment when light and life aligned. There was no bravado in his stories, no attempt to impress. He simply shared his love for the ocean and its creatures. "Don't you get lonely?" Natasha asked, surprising herself with the personal question. "Spending so much time alone out there?" Julian considered this thoughtfully. "Sometimes. But I've learned that being alone isn't the same as being lonely. Some of my loneliest moments happened in crowded rooms, surrounded by people who didn't really see me. His words struck something deep within her. She knew that loneliness intimately, the kind that existed even at her most glamorous parties, even in the arms of men who claimed to love her. "And what about you?" Julian asked gently. "Your design suggests someone who understands deep emotion, yet you seem to hold it all at arm's length." Natasha's defenses snapped up immediately. "You don't know me well enough to make that judgment." "You're right. I apologize." Julian's tone held no offense, just acceptance. "I have a habit of reading too much into things. Occupational hazard of watching whales for months, trying to understand their language." Something about his immediate, genuine apology softened her. Most men would have gotten defensive or tried to argue their point. Julian simply acknowledged her boundary and stepped back. As the evening wound down, Julian walked her to the gallery entrance. "I'm leading a small whale-watching expedition next Saturday. Just a handful of people on a research boat. Would you be interested? No pressure, just an offer to see the inspiration behind your ocean blues in their natural home." Every instinct told Natasha to say no. She didn't do spontaneous boat trips with men she'd just met. She didn't let strangers into her carefully controlled world. But something about the way he asked, without expectation, without agenda, made her pause. "I'll think about it," she heard herself say. Julian smiled, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. "That's all I could ask for. Good night, Natasha." As she drove home along the coastal highway, the moon reflecting silver across dark waters, Natasha realized she was still thinking about him. Not his appearance or his success, but the way he'd made her feel seen without trying to possess her, the way he'd respected her walls while gently acknowledging they existed. For the first time in years, a tiny crack appeared in the fortress around her heart. And despite everything, despite all her past pain and practiced cynicism, she felt the smallest flicker of something dangerous. Hope. Saturday morning arrived with clear skies and unusually calm seas. Natasha had spent the entire week convincing herself not to go, listing all the rational reasons to stay home. Yet here she was, standing at the dock in borrowed sailing boots, watching Julian prepare a modest research vessel with practiced efficiency. "You came," he said, his smile warm but not surprised, as if he'd somehow known she would. "I almost didn't," Natasha admitted. "But you did. That's what matters." The boat cut through glass-smooth water, leaving a trail of white foam behind. 3 other guests sat toward the bow, cameras ready, but Julian stayed near Natasha at the stern. "Tell me something," she said, watching the coastline shrink behind them. "Why ocean conservation? Why dedicate your life to this?" Julian's expression darkened slightly. "My father was a commercial fisherman. He loved the sea, but he also destroyed it without knowing. Overfishing, polluting. By the time he realized what he'd contributed to, it was too late. He died believing he'd failed the one thing he loved most. I'm sorry. Don't be. He taught me that love without awareness is just another form of harm. I photograph these creatures to make people aware, to make them care before it's too late." Natasha felt the weight of his words. "Is that why you never married? Too busy saving the ocean?" Julian turned to her, something unreadable in his eyes. "No. I was engaged once. Her name was Claire. She died in a car accident 3 years ago, on her way to meet me for dinner." The confession hung between them like a physical presence. "Julian, I had no idea." "How could you? I don't talk about it much. But you asked why I spend so much time alone." He looked out at the water. "Out here, the grief feels smaller. Manageable. On land, in the places we used to go together, it swallows me whole." Before Natasha could respond, one of the guests shouted. "There. 10 o'clock. A pod of humpback whales surfaced 50 yards away, their massive bodies breaking the water in synchronized grace. Julian immediately shifted into work mode, guiding the boat closer while explaining their behavior. But Natasha barely heard him. She was watching the way his face transformed when he looked at the whales, the way his pain dissolved into pure wonder. She recognized that escape, that need to lose yourself in something bigger than your own suffering. They watched the whales for 2 hours, the creatures circling the boat as if curious about these strange visitors. When one calf approached, its massive eye seeming to look directly at Natasha, she felt something break open inside her chest. "They remember," Julian said softly beside her. "Whales have some of the longest memories in the animal kingdom. They carry their past with them, always. But they keep swimming forward anyway." On the return journey, as the sun began its descent, Natasha found herself talking. Really talking, in a way she hadn't in years. "After Thomas left me, I stopped believing in love. Not just romantic love, all of it. I thought if I could just focus on my work, build something that couldn't betray me, I'd be fine. But you're right about what you said at the gallery. I hold everything at arm's length now. Even my own sister barely knows me anymore." "And how's that working for you?" Julian asked without judgment. "It's lonely," she admitted. "But it's safe." "Safe isn't the same as alive." They docked as twilight painted the sky in shades of purple and gold. As Natasha prepared to leave, Julian caught her hand gently. "Come back next weekend. Not for whale watching, just for dinner. At my place. I'll cook, we'll talk. No expectations, no pressure." Natasha looked at his hand holding hers, felt the warmth of it, the steadiness. Every warning bell in her mind screamed to pull away, to retreat to her fortress where nothing could hurt her. Instead, she heard herself say, "What time?" Julian's face lit up. 7. "I'll be there." As she drove away, she saw him in her rearview mirror, standing on the dock, watching her leave. Something about the image made her heart ache in a way that felt almost good, like blood returning to a limb that had fallen asleep. That night, alone in her penthouse, Natasha stood before her designs and realized they'd changed. The ocean blues she'd been using for years had always been cold, distant. But the sketch she'd just completed used warmer tones, deeper currents. She was changing, whether she wanted to or not. Her phone buzzed. A text from Julian: "Thank you for today. You reminded me that some things are worth coming back to shore for." Natasha stared at the message for a long moment before typing back, "Thank you for reminding me what it feels like to breathe." She hit send before she could overthink it. But as she set her phone down, another message came through. This one from an unknown number: "I saw you with him today. You don't know who he really is. Meet me tomorrow at the cafe on 5th Street. 10 a.m. Come alone. A friend." Natasha's blood ran cold. Her hands trembled as she read the message again. Who was watching them? And what didn't she know about Julian? The walls she'd been letting crack suddenly felt like the only thing keeping her from falling apart. The cafe on 5th Street smelled of fresh espresso and old secrets. Natasha arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a corner table where she could watch the door. Her stomach twisted with anxiety and anger. At exactly 10 a.m., a woman in her late 30s walked in. Elegant, composed, with dark hair pulled into a tight bun. She spotted Natasha immediately and approached with the confidence of someone carrying a weapon. "Thank you for coming," the woman said, sitting down without invitation. "I'm Rebecca Hayes. Julian's sister." Natasha's heart stopped. His sister? He's never mentioned me, has he? Rebecca's smile was bitter. That's not surprising. I'm the family secret he'd rather forget. What do you want? Rebecca pulled out her phone, sliding it across the table. On the screen was a photograph of Julian with a woman, beautiful and laughing, her engagement ring catching the light. "That's Claire," Rebecca said. "Beautiful, wasn't she? They were so in love. He told me about her. About the accident." "Did he?" Rebecca's eyes hardened. "Did he tell you he was driving the other car?" The cafe noise faded to white static. Natasha stared at the phone, then at Rebecca. "What?" "They were fighting that night. About his work, about how he was never home, always chasing his ocean dreams. She wanted stability, a family. He wanted freedom. She drove to the restaurant angry. He followed, trying to call her, not watching the road. He ran a red light and hit her car from the side." Natasha felt sick. "You're lying." "I wish I was. He survived with barely a scratch. She died instantly. The police ruled it an accident, no charges filed. But my brother killed the woman he claimed to love, and he spent 3 years running from that truth. Why are you telling me this?" Rebecca's expression softened slightly. "Because I've watched him destroy himself with guilt. And now I see him getting close to someone again, and I can't let him hurt another woman the way he hurt Claire. He doesn't mean to, but Julian is dangerous, Natasha. His need to escape reality, his obsession with the ocean, it's not romantic. It's pathological. He's running from what he did." Natasha stood, her chair scraping loudly. "I need to go." "Ask him," Rebecca called after her. "Ask him about the night Claire died. See if he can look you in the eye and tell you the truth." Natasha drove blindly, tears streaming down her face. Not for Julian, but for herself, for being stupid enough to hope again. Of course he was damaged. Of course there was a dark secret. There always was. She went straight to her studio and threw herself into work, trying to drown out the voice in her head that whispered, "You're just like him. Running. Hiding. Pretending your art can save you from your past." Her phone rang. "Julian." She let it ring once, twice, then answered. "Hey," his voice was warm, happy. "I was thinking about dinner this weekend. What if we did it on the boat instead? Watch the sunset from the water?" "Julian," her voice cracked. "I need to ask you something." Silence. Then, quietly, "You met Rebecca. Is it true? About Claire?" The pause stretched so long she thought he'd hung up. Then, "Yes." One word. That was all it took to shatter everything. "I was going to tell you," he continued, his voice breaking. "I just needed more time. I needed you to know me first, to understand that I'm not that person anymore. But you are that person. You killed someone, Julian. The woman you loved. It was an accident. You were fighting. You weren't paying attention. You ran a red light. I know." His voice was barely a whisper. "I know what I did. I live with it every single day. That's why I'm out there on the ocean, Natasha. That's why I can't stay on land for too long. Because on land, I remember that I took her from this world. I destroyed her family. I destroyed my own family. I destroyed everything." Natasha closed her eyes. "Why did you ask me out? Why did you let me start to care about you?" "Because for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe. When I'm with you, the guilt doesn't disappear, but it becomes bearable. You make me want to be better than the worst thing I've ever done. That's not fair to me, Julian. I can't be your redemption. I'm not asking you to be. I'm just asking for a chance to be honest with you. Please, Natasha. Let me explain everything. Come to dinner. If after tonight you never want to see me again, I'll accept that. But please, just give me one chance." Every rational part of Natasha screamed to hang up, block his number, return to her safe, controlled life. But something in his voice, the raw desperation, the genuine pain, called to the part of her that understood guilt and running and the weight of past mistakes. "One dinner," she said finally. "But Julian, if I see one more lie, one more omission, I'm done. I've had enough betrayal in my life." "No more lies," he promised. "I swear." After they hung up, Natasha sat in her studio as darkness fell outside. She thought about the whale in Julian's photograph, swimming alone, searching for her family. She thought about how the whale's song had changed when she found hope. Maybe some creatures were meant to swim alone. Maybe safety was worth more than connection. Or maybe, just maybe, some risks were worth taking, even when you were terrified of drowning again. Saturday evening arrived too quickly. Natasha stood at Julian's door, her hand raised to knock, her heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. Before she could touch the wood, the door opened. Julian stood there, barefoot, in jeans and a white shirt, his eyes red-rimmed as if he'd been crying. "I didn't think you'd come," he said. "Neither did I." He stepped aside to let her in, and Natasha walked into the truth, not knowing if she'd ever find her way back out. Julian's home was nothing like Natasha expected. Small, sparse, with walls covered in photographs of the ocean but none of people. No pictures of Claire. No family photos. Just water and sky and creatures who lived beneath the surface. It was the home of a man trying to forget he was human. "Wine?" Julian offered, his hands shaking slightly. "No. I want you clear-headed for this conversation." They sat on opposite ends of a worn couch, the space between them feeling like an ocean of its own. "Tell me everything," Natasha said. "From the beginning." Julian took a shaky breath. "Claire and I met in college. She was studying marine biology, I was doing photography. We both loved the ocean, but for different reasons. She wanted to understand it scientifically. I wanted to capture its soul. For a while, that was enough. When did it change? After we got engaged. She got a job offer at a research facility, stable hours, good pay. But it meant staying in one place. I had opportunities to travel, to document endangered species in remote locations. We started arguing about the future. She wanted children, a house, roots. I wanted freedom." Natasha heard the echo of her own past in his words. Derek had wanted freedom too. The night she died, we were supposed to have dinner to discuss our wedding plans. But I'd just gotten an offer for a 6-month expedition to Antarctica. Life-changing work, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I told her I was taking it. And she was upset. She said I was choosing the ocean over her. Over us. She said if I got on that boat, she wouldn't be there when I got back. She left the restaurant crying. I followed her, calling her phone, trying to explain. Trying to convince her that 6 months was nothing, that we'd have the rest of our lives together after. Julian's voice broke. But I wasn't watching the road. I was looking at my phone, trying to call her. The light turned red and I didn't see it. I hit her car going 45 miles per hour. Her car spun, hit a pole. She died before the ambulance arrived. Tears streamed down his face. The last thing I said to her was that the ocean mattered more than our wedding. And then I killed her trying to take it back. Natasha felt her own tears falling. Not just for him, but for herself, for Claire, for every person who'd ever lost someone to someone else's selfishness. Rebecca blames you. She should. I blame me. I turned down the Antarctica expedition. I sold everything I owned and bought that research boat. If I couldn't save Claire, maybe I could save something else. Maybe I could prove that I was capable of putting something before myself. But you're still running, Natasha said gently. You're still choosing the ocean. I know. Julian looked at her directly. And that's why I have to tell you the truth about something else. Something Rebecca doesn't even know. Natasha's stomach dropped. What? I have early-stage heart disease. Genetic. The same thing that killed my father. The doctors say I have maybe 10 years if I'm careful, 5 if I'm not. That's why I spend so much time on the water. It's not just about escaping guilt. It's about making what time I have left matter. The room spun. You're dying. Eventually. But here's the thing, Natasha. He moved closer, taking her hands. I've been dying since the night Claire died. Slowly suffocating under the weight of what I did. But meeting you, these past few weeks, I've felt alive again. Really alive. And I realized something. What? I don't want to spend the rest of my life running. I don't want to die on some boat in the middle of nowhere, alone, still trying to outrun my past. I want to stay. I want to try. With you. If you'll let me. Natasha pulled her hands away, standing up. This is too much, Julian. You're asking me to fall in love with someone who's already halfway gone. Someone who killed the last person who loved him. Someone who's still drowning in guilt. I know it's not fair. Fair? Nothing about this is fair. She paced the room. I came here ready to walk away. Ready to protect myself. But now you're telling me you're dying, and somehow that's supposed to make me stay? No, Julian stood too. I'm telling you because I'm tired of lies. Tired of omissions. You asked for the truth, and the truth is I'm broken, I'm guilty, and I'm running out of time. But I'm also falling in love with you, and I think you're falling in love with me too, and maybe that matters more than all the reasons it shouldn't work. Love isn't enough, Natasha whispered. I've learned that the hard way. You're right. Love isn't enough. But love plus truth, love plus commitment to being better, love plus someone willing to face their demons instead of running from them, maybe that's enough. I can't promise you forever, Natasha. But I can promise you honest, present, real. Natasha looked at him, this broken, dying man who'd somehow cracked open her carefully sealed heart. She thought about all the ways she'd been hurt, all the reasons she should walk away. Then she thought about the whale in his photograph, alone in the storm, searching for her family. She thought about the moment the whale's song changed, when hope returned. I can't do this, she said. Julian's face crumbled. I understand. I can't do this, she repeated, unless you promise me something. You see your doctors. You get treatment. You stop trying to outrun your death by throwing yourself into dangerous ocean expeditions. You choose life, Julian. Really choose it. Not for me, for you. Hope flickered in his eyes. You're staying? I'm staying. But I'm scared, Julian. I'm terrified. Because this time, when I lose you, it won't be because you chose something else. It'll be because life took you from me. And I don't know if I'm strong enough to survive that. He crossed to her, cupping her face in his hands. Then we'll be scared together. We'll be broken together. We'll figure it out together. When he kissed her, it tasted like salt water and second chances, like grief and hope tangled into one impossible moment. But as they stood there, holding each other in that sparse living room full of ocean photographs, Natasha's phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. But it buzzed again. And again. Finally, she pulled away and checked it. 5 messages from Jenny, each more urgent than the last. Natasha, turn on the news. Call me immediately. I'm so sorry. He lied to you again. That's not his real name. With trembling hands, Natasha opened the news link Jenny had sent. The headline made the room tilt. Wanted photographer suspected of insurance fraud surfaces after 3 years in hiding. Below was a photo of Julian. But the name underneath read, Marcus Chen. She looked up at him, phone shaking in her hand. He'd gone pale as death. Natasha, I can explain. Who are you? She whispered. I'm the man standing in front of you. Everything else I told you was true. Except your name. Except your identity. Except everything. The walls she'd started to tear down rebuilt themselves in seconds, higher and stronger than before. And this time, she knew, they would never come down again. Natasha backed toward the door, phone clutched to her chest like armor. Don't, Julian, or Marcus, or whoever he was, said desperately. Please. Just listen. I'm done listening. I'm done believing. I'm done being the fool. The insurance fraud, he said quickly, it was a setup. After Claire died, her family sued me. They claimed I had life insurance on her, that I'd planned the whole thing. It wasn't true, but the investigation destroyed my photography career. No one would hire Marcus Chen, the photographer who killed his fiancée. So I changed my name. Started over. The fraud charges were dropped, but by then the damage was done. Natasha's hand found the doorknob. You should have told me. When? On our first meeting? Our second? When do you tell someone that your past is so toxic that you had to erase your entire identity to survive it? Before you told me you loved me. Before you made me hope again. She yanked the door open, but he moved quickly, blocking her path. Not threatening, just desperate. You want to know the real reason I changed my name? Because every time someone called me Marcus, I heard Claire's voice saying my name the moment before impact. I heard her screaming. I heard the sound of metal crushing and glass breaking and her last breath. I couldn't live with that name anymore. So yes, I changed it. I became Julian Hayes because Marcus Chen died in that intersection along with the woman he loved. Natasha saw his pain, raw and real, and hated that she still cared. Move. If you walk out that door, you're doing exactly what Derek did to you. What Michael did. What Thomas did. You're choosing the easy exit over the hard truth. The words hit her like a physical blow. How dare you compare this to what they did to me? Isn't it the same? I'm not perfect. I made mistakes. But I'm here, standing in front of you, offering you everything I am, broken pieces and all. And you're running because it's easier than fighting for something real. No. Natasha's voice shook with rage. They ran. You're the one who's been running for 3 years. I'm just refusing to chase you. She pushed past him into the night. He didn't follow, and somehow that hurt worse than if he had. The drive home blurred through tears. Her phone rang constantly, Julian's name lighting up the screen. She ignored every call. At her penthouse, she poured herself wine and stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the ocean in the distance. The same ocean Julian loved. The same ocean that had given him refuge while she'd been foolish enough to believe in him. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jenny, there's more to the story. Rebecca Hayes contacted me. She wants to talk to you. Says you need to know the truth about her brother. Another meeting. Another revelation. Another layer to a lie that kept expanding. Natasha almost deleted the message. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the same instinct that had made her go to Julian's dinner despite every warning. Maybe it was the need to know the full truth before she could finally bury her heart for good. She texted back, where and when. The meeting was set for the next morning at Rebecca's home, an upscale townhouse overlooking the marina. Rebecca answered the door looking smaller somehow, less menacing than she had at the cafe. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. I wasn't sure you would. I shouldn't have. They sat in a pristine living room filled with photographs. Claire's face smiled from every frame, frozen in happiness that would never age. I owe you an apology, Rebecca began. Everything I told you about the accident was true. But I left out the most important part. Natasha's chest tightened. What part? Claire was pregnant. 8 weeks. She hadn't told Marcus yet because they'd been fighting so much. She was going to tell him that night at dinner. That's why she was so upset when he said he was leaving. She wasn't just losing her fiancé. She was losing the father of her child. The room spun. Oh my God. Marcus doesn't know. After she died, the medical examiner told me first since I was her emergency contact. I never told him. I was so angry, so destroyed by grief, I wanted him to suffer. I wanted him to live with the guilt of killing Claire without ever knowing he'd killed their baby too. Natasha felt sick. Why are you telling me this now? Because I saw you together at the dock. I saw the way he looked at you. And I realized I'd turned my brother into a ghost to punish him for a tragedy. He spent 3 years drowning in guilt he doesn't even know the full extent of. And he's dying, Natasha. He told you about his heart, didn't he? Natasha nodded, unable to speak. He won't get treatment. He thinks he deserves to die. But when I saw him with you, I saw something I haven't seen in 3 years. I saw him want to live. So I'm telling you this because you need to understand something. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. My brother made a terrible mistake. But he spent every day since trying to atone for it. He changed his name not to hide from the law, but to hide from the sound of Claire's voice in his nightmares. And if you walk away from him now, he will die alone on some boat in the middle of the ocean, believing he was never worthy of love. What am I supposed to do with this information? Natasha whispered. I don't know. But I do know that Claire would hate what I did to him. She loved Marcus, even when they fought. She would want him to live. To find happiness again. To forgive himself. I can't give him that forgiveness. Only you can. Natasha drove to the marina in a daze. She found Julian's boat exactly where it had been before, but this time it was preparing to leave. Julian was on deck, loading supplies, his movements mechanical and lifeless. Going somewhere, she called from the dock. He spun around, shock crossing his face. Natasha. Answer the question. Where are you going? Does it matter? It matters to me. He climbed down to the dock, stopping a few feet away. I'm going to document the whales we saw. Extended expedition. 3 months, maybe 4. Maybe I won't come back. Because of me. Because I'm tired, Natasha. I'm tired of hurting people. I'm tired of carrying all this weight. Out there, on the ocean, it's just me and the water and the creatures who don't know my sins. What about treatment? What about fighting for your life? Why? So I can live long enough to hurt someone else I care about? Natasha stepped closer. What if I told you I know about the baby? His face went white. What baby? Claire was pregnant. 8 weeks. Rebecca told me this morning. She watched the information hit him like a tidal wave. His knees buckled, and he sat hard on the dock, his entire body shaking. No, he whispered. No, no, no. Natasha sat beside him. Rebecca kept it from you. She wanted you to suffer. A baby. His voice broke completely. I killed my baby. I killed our baby. You didn't know. That doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Don't you see? I took everything. Everything. They sat in silence as Julian wept, his grief so raw it echoed across the empty marina. Natasha put her hand on his back, feeling him shake beneath her palm. I forgive you, she said quietly. He looked at her through tears. What? I forgive you. For the name. For the secrets. For being human and broken and scared. I forgive you, Julian. Or Marcus. Whoever you are. I forgive all of you. How can you forgive me when I can't forgive myself? Because I know what it's like to carry pain that won't let go. Because I know what it's like to run from your past until you forget how to stand still. Because despite everything, despite all the lies and all the reasons I should hate you, I love you. And love means choosing to forgive even when the hurt is still fresh. He stared at her. I don't deserve you. Maybe not. But you're what I choose. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to cancel this expedition. You're going to schedule an appointment with your cardiologist. You're going to call Rebecca and let her tell you what she needs to tell you. And then you're going to let me help you carry this grief, because you don't have to carry it alone anymore. And if I can't do it? If I fail? Then we'll fail together. But at least we'll fail trying to live instead of trying to die. Julian took her hand, pressing it to his chest where his damaged heart beat unsteadily. I'm so scared. Me too. But maybe that's okay. Maybe being scared means we have something worth protecting. He pulled her close, and they held each other on the dock as the sun rose over the ocean, painting the water in shades of gold and hope. It wasn't a perfect ending. There would be hard days ahead, therapy sessions, difficult conversations with Rebecca, medical treatments. There would be moments when the past tried to pull them back into darkness. But they had each other. And sometimes, that was enough. 3 months later, Natasha stood in her studio, putting the finishing touches on her new collection. She called it Breaking Surface, a series of designs inspired by creatures who lived in the deep but came up for air, who carried the weight of the ocean but still chose to breathe. Julian entered with coffee, moving slower now that treatment had started, but moving nonetheless. How's it going? He asked. It's done. What do you think? He studied the designs, his photographer's eye noting every detail. They're alive. You've captured something I've been trying to photograph for years. The moment between drowning and breathing. The choice to survive. I had a good teacher. He kissed her forehead. So did I. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Pacific stretched endless and forgiving. Somewhere beneath those waves, whales sang to each other across vast distances, carrying their memories, their grief, their hope. And in a penthouse studio in California, 2 broken people who'd found each other in the wreckage learned what it meant to surface together, to choose life over surrender, to love despite the pain. They'd never be completely healed. Some wounds ran too deep. But they'd be healed enough. They'd be whole enough. They'd be together enough. And in the end, that was more than either of them had ever dared to hope for. The end.